Gladiator Begins may seem like your run-of-the-mill hack and slash game, but those who give this little gem a chance will realise that despite its simple gameplay and design, it could well be one of the most enjoyable games on the PSP. The premise is simple: you create a character and pit him in combat with other gladiators, with the goal being to gain enough money to win your freedom. As the game largely centres around fighting, there are several different styles the player can choose from when creating a gladiator. These styles are simply tied to different weapons, from swords to spears and shields, that all offer up a selection of ways to take on enemies. During combat you have access to a wide range of attacks, as well as several skills that can help turn the tide of a battle. For every battle you participate in, you gain attribute points, money and skills. The attribute points are used in order to raise your vitality, endurance and strength, whilst the money you acquire is used to buy equipment, mainly in the form of armor sets that all grant you an array of benefits, but most of the money is put towards attaining your freedom. If you're looking for an exciting and rewarding game on the PSP, Gladiator Begins more than fits the bill. Pursuit Force is a game that thrives on originality by mixing several concepts together into a solid experience that results in one of the finest action games on the PSP. As the player, you're part of an elite group known as the Pursuit Force, which has been assigned to take down 6 gangs that are causing havoc across the city. The gameplay is largely split up into missions that sees you taking out each of the gangs in a variety of exciting ways. The gameplay is the real star of the show here. Now, the main aspect that will stand out is the ability to leap from moving vehicles onto another. All of the action is exceptionally fast. The game never lulls in this regard for more than a few seconds at most. There's always something going on, and at a breakneck pace to boot. When you mix this in with the simple controls, it is absolutely sublime. Visually, Pursuit Force impresses mostly in terms of its scope relative to the speed. Character models and vehicles are very detailed, with each gang car being distinctive and original, as are those of regular pedestrians and even your character's police supply transport. It all looks stunning on the handheld screen. Although the game isn't perfect due to its somewhat ridiculous story and lack of difficulty, it's nothing that sours the overall experience, mainly due to the incredible gameplay that's on offer. The first thing to get out of the way when it comes to Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins is the unforgiving nature of the experience. It's a game that's not afraid to challenge the player, and at points it will feel like it just simply hates you. You take on the role of Arthur, who possesses a selection of abilities to help you deal with the crushing difficulty, from wielding bombs to crossbows and boomerangs, as well as several sets of armor that each offer unique abilities. The adventure is largely split up into different levels, with each stage being well designed, with plenty of areas off the beaten path to explore and find a variety of secret items, magic spells and armor which is scattered throughout each level. On the gameplay front, I would be remiss not to mention the jumping. This one aspect of the game is the main reason why it received mixed reviews upon its release. You can't change the direction of the jump in midair. Once you commit to jumping, you have to follow through. It may have the potential to turn some players away, but for those who are willing to take the time to master its rather archaic approach to gameplay, a solid and rewarding experience awaits you. The Tales series has always been one of my go-to RPGs, and just like many other successful franchises, a variety of spin-offs usually see the light of day. Tales of Versus takes much inspiration from the likes of Smash Bros. It takes a range of characters from the series past and pits them together into an arena-based fighting game. If you've ever played the series before, the battling system will instantly feel familiar. There's a total of 35 characters who each possess a range of basic attacks, as well as special abilities known as arts that have the potential to turn the tide of a battle in the blink of an eye. Unlike Smash Bros though, every character has HP and TP, meaning the only way to knock someone out is to keep attacking them with regular attacks and arts until their HP reaches 0. There's also items that randomly appear throughout the stage for any of the characters to use, with the good thing being that these items can also be turned off for those that don't want to play with them. As with most fighters, there's a choice of different modes for the player to indulge, the main attraction being the story, with quick battles, survival and versus helping to pad out the experience once you've made your way through the narrative. Now, Tales of Versus won't be for everyone, but if you're a fan of the franchise, there's more than enough on offer to warrant a purchase. The PSP was home to a huge selection of incredible fighting games, but one that often gets overlooked is Darkstalkers: The Chaos Tower. It's essentially a collection of sorts that takes all of the characters, music and endings from previous games and brings them together into a complete package. The gameplay is pretty standard if you're at all familiar with 2D fighting games, with each character having a selection of basic attacks and a range of special abilities that forms the basis of the fighting system. There's a generous amount of fighters included, so trying out each is a good idea to find which one suits you best, and they all offer a nice amount of variety, from towering beasts to the more traditional fighters the series is well known for. Now, one of the best features of the game is the amount of modes the player can choose from, with the main one being the Chaos Tower. It consists of about 100 floors of battles, with many of them unlocking art and different rewards. You choose your 3 favourite fighters, and before each floor you choose which one you'll use for the impending battle and fight. But if you lose health in that battle, you only regenerate a little for each floor, which is what makes this mode harder. If you're a fan of the series, this one is a no-brainer, and is bound to offer up hours upon hours of entertainment. The PSP was no stranger to quality platformers, but one that often gets overlooked is Loco Roco. The second in the series is quite easily one of my favourite games on the system. The vibrant and colourful charm of the experience is something that has always stayed with me. The gameplay is easily the best feature. Rather than using the face buttons, it relies on the shoulder buttons of the PSP to tilt the playing field to roll the Loco Roco one way or another. Hitting both buttons at the same time jolts the level upward to send your character into the air. Although the controls are simple, as the game progresses it does get a lot more complex due to the incredible level design. Each has its own theme, from icy slopes to lush jungles and tropical waters, with several enemies and obstacles to avoid and use. If you want to breeze through the game as fast as possible, you can do so in about 4 hours. However, you'll entirely miss out on all of the secrets, including alternate level paths, bonus levels and the real final boss of the game. Loco Roco 2 would make a worthy addition to anyone's PSP library. While the difficulty to complete each level from start to finish isn't very large, trying to achieve the best ending Loco Roco 2 has to offer is a far greater challenge. E7 once again sees you taking up the role of the famous adventurer Adol. Don't let the 7 in the title put you off though, as it's largely a standalone adventure that doesn't really require any knowledge of the past games to enjoy. This time around it sees you travelling to the island of Altego in search of a new journey, and it isn't long before you get entangled into a plot that involves the fate of the entire kingdom. As with most RPGs, you can expect to be visiting a range of locations and interacting with a lovable cast of NPCs that all help to flesh out and add a real weight to the world. The battling system is presented in real time and sees the player utilising up to 2 separate party members. This of course provides some much welcome gameplay variety, as each character has their own weapons and skills. Certain enemies that you run into will have various weaknesses or strengths. This gives the game a sort of rock paper scissors vibe to its combat, which often forces you to keep a well balanced team to easily take care of enemies. This is no more apparent than when taking on bosses. You can tell special attention was placed into each boss fight, with all of them possessing varied and special attacks, as well as just generally being fantastically well designed. E7 is a great RPG. Add in the solid graphics, fantastic boss fights and outstanding music, and what you have is something that should not be missed. Star Soldier is essentially a remake of the classic shooter that appeared on the NES. The PSP version is an enhanced port of the PlayStation 2 and GameCube release and soon becomes the best version of the game. One of the most unique features of the experience is the player having to turn their PSP console vertically in order to play the game. It can feel a bit weird at first for sure, but it won't take you long before you forget, and that's where the fun starts. Right from the get-go, the level of difficulty is bound to hit you. Star Soldier is not a walk in the park, and may have the potential to steer some players away because of it, but if you stick with it and get used to the several mechanics in place, it soon becomes one of the best shooters on the system. At the beginning you get to choose from 3 different ships, so trying out each is essential for newcomers in order to find out which one suits you best. Naturally, there's a ton of different power-ups and items that make taking on the onslaught of enemies all the more manageable, which really come in handy across the several boss encounters that make up the experience as well. They're all meticulously designed, both visually and mechanically, which makes taking on each a real test of patience and strategy. If you're on the lookout for a solid shooter on the PSP, Star Soldier is well worth picking up. Dante's Inferno is a game that wears its inspiration on its sleeves. If you're at all familiar with God of War, you'll instantly know what to expect. As the player, you take up the fight as Dante and are plunged into an adventure that spans the depths of hell as you search for your father to ultimately find a way to save him. Dante's primary weapon is a scythe, with you possessing both quick and strong attacks as well as a ranged cross ability that all form the basis of the combat system. As you take down enemies, you gain experience which can be spent on learning new skills and abilities that help further flesh out the options available to you. But perhaps the most interesting part of the game is the fact that you can choose to punish or absolve certain enemies. After you've made your choice, you'll get either red or blue orbs, which will level up your unholy or holy paths respectively. Each new level you obtain on these paths gives you access to even more abilities. The game also has some platforming elements to it as well, with quite a bit of wall climbing and the occasional puzzle that manages to break up the gameplay between encounters. Much like God of War, a real highlight are the bosses, and they soon become one of the best aspects of the game. Overall, it never quite reaches the heights of its contemporary, but it does offer up an enjoyable take on the God of War formula and manages to stand on its own as a great adventure. For fans of the first Valkyria Chronicles, hearing that the sequel was going to be exclusive to the PSP was a bit of a blow. The first game was widely celebrated for its unique visual style, and many thought that it simply wasn't going to be possible on the PSP. Thankfully, it managed to retain nearly every aspect of the original and present one of the best entries in the series. It's essentially a turn-based strategy game that sees the player taking control of a character and commanding a variety of units. As you would expect, things have been scaled down a bit, with the battlefields being a bit smaller, but it's nothing that takes away from the core premise of the gameplay. One aspect of the game that stands out is the sheer amount of customization available to the player. There is literally hundreds of options that makes building the perfect squad all the more easier, and with up to 30 different classes and 30 plus side characters to develop relationships with, it's a game that just keeps on giving. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow me on all of the socials to stay up to date on future videos and to take part in giveaways. You can also join our growing community on Discord and meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters Rhino, Skill Jim, Nano, Steve and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining our Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find the links in the description. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.